I don't want to discourage you from living in Mexico. I've lived there in the past. It's a great place to live. I had residency there. My daughter went to school there. We've lived on the Atlantic side, on the Pacific side. It's got a low cost of living. It's got really good food, some really fun festivals to partake in. There are lots of good reasons to live in Mexico as an American, but in this video, I want to talk about a few places that I think you should move instead. The first place that I want you to consider moving is to Colombia in South America. It's personally one of my favorite places to live. I lived in Medellin for 6 months. I lived in Valledupar for a month as well. But there's also plenty of coastline, both on the Pacific and the Atlantic, that you could check out. There's desert, there's mountains, there's a lot of range of places to check out, including the Amazon forest. If you're looking at initial moving costs, it costs quite a bit more to fly to Colombia than it does to Mexico from the United States. Obviously, Mexico is a lot closer. But once you're there, I found that it has a much lower cost of living, especially the food. If you're going out for lunch, or if you're ordering dinner, or even if you're going to the grocery store, I found that you can get some really, really good prices in Colombia, even compared to the low cost of living in Mexico. Now, when it comes to the cost of housing in both places, I've found better places to buy in Mexico, but in Colombia, I've definitely paid lower prices on rent and generally gotten much nicer apartments, whereas in Mexico, you know, I've seen places like condos in Cancun that are selling for about $28,000. Colombia also offers a 6-month stay on a tourist visa, just like Mexico does. I mean, you do have to renew at the 3-month point, but also Medellin and Colombia in particular, compared to Mexico, I find has a little bit easier Spanish to understand. And it's not that Mexican Spanish is difficult to understand. I just find something about the Colombian accent a little bit easier on the ears and a little bit easier to pick up. That could be different for other people, but just something that I've personally found. I've also found that in Colombia, it's a lot easier to get around to some places. Now, while in Mexico, they have a really good busing system, the ADO buses, for example, that can get you around from city to city are really good and, you know, not expensive or anything. But I've just found that once you're in Colombia, you have a lot more options for things like Uber and Didi and Beat. Those will be any of the apps that you can use for like car riding services, things like that. In Mexico, there's a lot of places where those things are banned and you just can't get a hold of them. And it's also a lot easier to like rent a motorcycle in Colombia, or even buy a motorcycle and get your own plates and stuff on it, as compared to Mexico, where it's a little bit more difficult to do that stuff. So in terms of transportation, Colombia definitely is better than Mexico. And moreover, it's not as dangerous as people think. I think in the United States, Colombia gets a lot of bad coverage for the past multitude of decades, and they really don't deserve it anymore. It's a really peaceful and beautiful country. Like, yeah, there were some restrictions during the pandemic and things like that that really annoyed me personally when I was there, and I thought really restricted freedoms where they shouldn't have. But other than that, like, it's a really peaceful country. It's not dangerous. I don't think you're going to get kidnapped or anything like that, like American media would have you believe. Next, if you're interested in dating, I would say that the dating scene is definitely better in Colombia than it is in Mexico. Now, I don't know what it is exactly, something in the water or the air, but the girls in Colombia are just smoking hot. Now, while both countries both have access to the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, and I really love that, and they have a lot of lakes and things and rivers to explore, there's something that Colombia has that Mexico doesn't, and that is the Amazon jungle. So getting down to the Amazon jungle also gives you access to a few other countries. I think you can go into Peru really easily from there as well, but you can just do a lot of stuff in the Amazon jungle that you might not be able to find in Mexico, because the Amazon is just unlike any other place on Earth. And the last reason you might want to consider Colombia instead of Mexico is that it's probably the easiest place in Latin America to actually buy a vehicle as a tourist. You can go into the country on a tourist visa, buy yourself a vehicle, and then you can resell it later on. You can even drive it out of the country and go to other countries as well. Another place you might want to move instead of Mexico is to Costa Rica, and this one is very close to my heart because it's where I did my study abroad when I was in college. It's where I lived with a Tican family. But here's a few more reasons why you might love it too. Number one, they have one of the most chill slogans on the planet, but it's not just a slogan for their country, it's actually a lifestyle. They say pura vida, and pura vida means basically the pure life, if you roughly translate it, but they use it for everything. I mean, they say hello by saying it, they say goodbye by saying it. Everything's pura vida. Everything's pura vida, mai. And if everything's pura vida, everyone's just like that. They're super chill. It's a very pura vida attitude there, and it's a really nice culture to live in. I love it. Probably the most chill and pura vida part of Costa Rica is that you can poke that like button to help this video expand in the algorithm, and let me know down in the comments if you want to move to Costa Rica or not. But if you do want to move to Costa Rica, it's going to be a really easy place for you to live because there's a lot of English speakers there, number one, but also it's one of those places where the Spanish is really easy to understand and pick up on. It's a great place to learn. Another reason Costa Rica rules compared to Mexico is that the cops in Costa Rica are probably some of the most chill in the world. Whereas if you're somewhere in Mexico, you could be in Cancun, there's just like truckloads of military people and police all over the place patrolling everywhere. I mean, they're not like looking out to hassle you or anything, but it just kind of gives the impression of, oh, this place is really heavily militarized. Whereas if you're down in Costa Rica, they actually don't even have a standing military, and the police officers are all pretty cool, even if you run into them anyway. Another reason I like Costa Rica more than Mexico, and that you might want to move there, is that it's much easier to explore the entirety of the country. Mexico is huge and it's got a lot of places to go, and it takes a lot of time to explore it. Whereas you could cover Costa Rica probably in a couple weeks, probably even within a week if you were moving really quickly. It's not a big country at all, but it still has Pacific, it still has Atlantic, it still has kind of that Caribbean vibe over on that side, whereas you could get up into the mountains and go check out like Monteverde and go see butterflies and all kinds of green lush areas. You could go see volcanoes. There's all kinds of stuff to explore in Costa Rica, but it's much smaller, so it feels a little bit tighter to me, and I kind of appreciate that. Just coming from a small town myself, I think I like places that are a little bit more connected, and I get that feeling in Costa Rica. If you're an outdoorsy person, I'm not saying you won't like Mexico, but you're gonna love Costa Rica. It's got some of the best places in the world to surf. There's been a lot of movies that have popularized Costa Rican surfing destinations. There's really great snorkeling there. I learned to go snorkel in Costa Rica. I was terrified of the ocean before that, would never even get in, but eventually learned to snorkel there just because I accidentally ended up on a trip that was snorkeling and I didn't know about it, but it's really well known for being like an eco-adventure hot spot. It also has some of my favorite hot springs in the world. It's where I got introduced to them at Volcano Arenal at a place called Los Lagos. If you ever get the chance, go check it out. It's really cool. It's got multi-tiered hot springs. It's got these really cool slides going down into them. It's got a swim-up bar. It's got places with crocodiles and a butterfly house and a frog house and all these other creatures that live down there. It's got a nice hike up the mountain where you can go check out the volcano and stuff like that. Now, I will say that if you want to move to Costa Rica for all those reasons, the one downside that you might not like compared to Mexico is that Costa Rica is generally more expensive on everything, food, housing, you name it. So if you're looking for something that is guaranteed to be less expensive than Mexico, let's go to the third place we're going to talk about, and that's Thailand. Now, Thailand has a super low cost of living. I rented a bungalow there in the jungle on an island for $150 a month. Now, you'd get what you expect for that price, but even some of the top of the line places were no more than about $600 a month. That could get you like a private villa with your own little pool overlooking the ocean, like really nice places in Thailand for a pittance compared to something that you might get in Mexico. It's also really cheap to get around. There's tuk-tuks, there's the long trucks, but you can also rent a scooter really easily. That could be like 60 bucks a month, maybe 100 bucks a month, something like that. And then gas is gonna cost you a few dollars because it's so cheap. And while I'll never say that Mexico has bad food, no, their food is muy delicioso, muy rico. It's delicious in Mexico. I love the food there, but there's just no better food than what you're going to find in Thailand. And not just is it just so good and so healthy, but it's also incredibly cheap. You can literally feed yourself for a couple dollars a day, and that's with going out to like street restaurants and things like that. And that doesn't even include the fact that you can go into the 7-Eleven and you can get some really nice ice creams for like 30 to 50 cents. You can get $1 beer basically, just right out of the fridge, crack it right there and go drinking on the street if that's your kind of thing. And I can just never get over the diversity of things to do in Thailand as well. There's like really cool wats to explore explore. That's those really interesting temples that they have. There's all kinds of waterfalls and jungles and islands to go to. The big cities like Chiang Mai and Bangkok are so much fun, like their night markets and things like that. You can go to places like Pattaya for partying. The diving and the yoga there is just unmatched throughout the world too. So lots of really good reasons to live in Thailand instead of Mexico. And Thailand is where I got started as a digital nomad. You could get started there too by watching this video right here. But like this video and please let me know down in the comments where you would like to move other than Mexico. See you in another video.